speaker is Maceo Martinet. And let me got the wrong page. Maceo is, hello, ecologist and educator. He's with the, works with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to provide technical and financial assistance to private landowners, tribes, and schools to improve wildlife habitat and the overall ecological integrity. He received a doctorate in biology from UNM. I think his advisor, Dr. Cliff Dahm, is here somewhere. And I lost my place. His degree was in the freshwater, his studies were in the Freshwater Sciences Interdisciplinary Doctoral Program. Maceo and I collaborated for a number of years as members of the Albuquerque and Bernalillo County Water Utility Advisory Board. And I value my time with Maceo, and I'll let you go.
Thank you, Bruce. So my presentation is completely different. I don't have one graph in there, so you can put down your notepads now and just relax. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you guys, and thank you for being here. Let's see how to do this thing. So I want you to relax a little bit and look at this picture. Don't fall asleep, and I'm looking at you, Cliff. I want you to think about, and this is a mural in Española, I want you to think about the connection between the farmers and the mountains way in the back there. Think about the connection between the farmers and the mountain. You could think about the physical connection, the water coming from the mountains. You can think about the economic connection, whether they gather wood or whether they gather piñones from the mountain. You can think about the cultural connection they have to the mountains, what ceremonies, what festivals they do in order to celebrate the mountain. And you can think about the spiritual connection. You know, what does the mountain do? How does the mountain take care of the farmers, and the farmers take care of the mountain? While the list of connections between these farmers and the mountains can be quite long, the majority of us rarely think about the land in this way anymore. Whether it's the mountains or the Bosque, we are all confronted with the reality that many, if not most of us, are disconnected from these mountains, or from the Bosque, or from the water, or from farming, much more so than generations in the past. How would we manage the Bosque differently if we were more economically, culturally, and spiritually connected to the Bosque? How would it look? What policies and actions do we need to take in order to cultivate this relationship between the Bosque and our next generations? How do we reconnect to and take care of the Bosque if we don't fish in it anymore, explore in it anymore, swim in it anymore, hunt in it anymore, or collect its medicinal plants anymore? For people that do not use the acequia just becomes a ditch, a thing that has no cultural context at all. This picture is from the Cesar Chavez Service Learning Day that I took several years back. And what they're looking at, what you can't see in the picture, there's a couple people doing a blessing ceremony to thank those that came that day to do some work on the land, to thank the shovels and all the tools that allow us to do that work, and to thank the land itself. I like this picture not only because of the symmetry of the figure and all the different hairdos that the kids have, but also it reminds me how disconnected we are as a society. While this is one day, and it's a very important day for the youth, this is just one day in the year that we actually do this. And that's the nature of our disconnection. It takes a lot longer than just one day in the year, especially in the school year, to develop those connections between the youth and the environment. I'd like to make a plug to Obama, if he's listening, that I want to commend him and his administration for implementing the America's Great Outdoors AGO initiative, which is an initiative that was recently reaffirmed by Sally Jewell, who's a new DOI head. Basically, what the America's Great Outdoors initiative does is it allows flexibility for and encourages DOI people to connect to schools, to create opportunities for young people to experience the outdoors, the greater outdoors. But at the same time that we have this initiative, we also have the mandate from federal side and state side to increase more testing. So now teachers are pretty much straitjacketed and have to teach to the test, which means more time indoors. So as typical fashion, kids are being pulled one way or the other, and we're not sure what to do. Well, let me not do that yet. So I was asked, why do I work with youth in the Bosque? Don't you get so many headaches? And the answer is I get a lot of headaches and more gray hairs, but I'll tell you a story of why. I was biking along the Bosque on the Bosque Trail, and I get a flat, darn Toritos, and I'm there with my flat tire in front of the Rio Grande Nature Center, and I'm actually at the head of the trail, the Aldo Leopold Trail. And so I actually read the sign, and Aldo Leopold's quote, he said, "Every citizen should remember that this park will be one of Albuquerque's greatest assets," which he said in 1918. I totally agree with that. And I was thinking that the other greatest asset that Albuquerque has is youth. So why not just combine great assets of Albuquerque, youth, and the Bosque together? Voila, I was onto something. But the truth is, I'm obligated. Somebody said I'm passionate. No, it's more of an obligation to help youth, because I know there's a tremendous need to expose youth to the outdoors, to cultivate that relationship. At the same time, I'm very aware of the tremendous inequality that exists in our youth in terms of access to those opportunities to experience nature, especially for folks of color, communities of color, and underserved communities. The following pictures are some examples of this work with youth, along with some ideas I learned from doing this work, which I formulated in an article submitted to the Journal of Sustainability Education. This picture here represents the idea that we have to ensure that curriculum allows students to be direct participants in creating change in the community. Here the students are installing a rainwater harvesting cistern off of a mobile classroom that they're going to use to water an outdoor classroom planting a garden. And the students on the right actually did the mural. It was an amazing mural. So the students here are directly participating and engaged in water conservation. This is one of the eroded tributaries to the Santa Fe River that we recently, actually last couple of weeks, did. They build these berm and basin structures, which you see behind the students, to capture rain runoff and also capture the sediment load that it has. In addition, the tubing here that they're laying out is siphoning gray water from a nearby house. And in those basins, they're going to plant pollinator plants. So the students are directly participating and engaged in water conservation and increasing pollinator habitat. This picture represents the idea to integrate at all levels the local community into the science curriculum, and this community extends from natural community to working landscape. So here they're learning about fish in the river by actually seining with some colleagues at Fish and Wildlife. Angela, you were there. And here's another picture. And just to reiterate what Kim just said, the students have lived there all their life and have lived here all their lives, but have never actually put their feet into the river. We rafted. We had a rafting trip with the students, and we actually visited some local farmers as well. This picture represents the idea to engage young students to explore the sciences, but also every discipline, through different cultural traditions, expressions, and settings. And this we do very, very little. This is a cultural expression through art, looking at the local ecology. And I always like that there's a saguaro cactus, and there's no saguaro cactuses. Maybe they were thinking about the future. We learned water engineering, water conservation, culture through studying some of the terrace gardens in South America and Peru. It's fascinating examples of this cultural connection to science. So what does climate change mean for science education, which is the other question I was asked to talk about? For me, climate change opens up many new opportunities for our youth to get directly involved in creating a better future. It's ripe. I mean, this is a perfect opportunity for us. I know there's a lot of negative about the future, but it also opens up a universe of possibility. And it's an opportunity for youth to look critically at the type of thinking and philosophies that got us into this mess we are in. For example, restoration work, which is kind of the work I'm doing now, planting, erosion control, community gardens, etc., can be a very good way to bring back the Bosque, but also used as a means to reconnect youth to nature. Here we're doing a restoration planting at a burnt site with some city of Albuquerque folks. Here's another example of it, and another restoration project with the younger kids, which I think is why they were more closer to me. The older kids tend to be much further away. They were on top of me, these guys. Can restoring the Bosque help us restore our connection in nature and restore a sense of belonging, a sense of place, a sense of well-being? I believe so. I believe there's a deep connection there. And so does Audrey Hepburn, who wrote, "People, even more than things, have to be restored, renewed, revived, reclaimed, and redeemed. Never throw out anyone." And not just me and Mrs. Hepburn believe this, but scientists who wrote the latest IPCC report released as of yesterday write, "Strategies and actions can be pursued now that will help us move towards climate-resilient pathways for sustainable development, while at the same time helping to improve livelihoods, social, and economic well-being." Those two are inseparable. And I'm going to leave you with a story that kind of answers these kind of questions. First question, should science education be a means to teach youth ways to be better citizens? And that's a question to you guys. And there's a lot of debate, actually, amongst ecologists. What can the Bosque teach us about how to be resilient in the face of disruptions? This picture is from due to the strong storms we had of September of last year, 2013. A massive plug of sediment deposited at the mouth of Peralta Canyon, effectively pushing the Rio Grande into the Bosque. We were there with a group of students that were getting a tour of this large stretch of Bosque that had the river basically running through it. We all stood by the bank of the river, remarking on the various waterfalls along the Bosque. It dawned on us that even though the floods were damaging to private and public property, it also created a whole new habitats and rejuvenated Bosque, opening up new ecological niches for life to fill. And with that, I'll leave you guys. If you have any questions.